Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Monday, the 9th of June. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Malicious NPM packages are posing as utilities that in fact delete project directories. So it's a warning to all of us that use NPM in any way, one form or another. Some of the things that end up in there are not what they seem. This isn't the first time we've said this, but there are a couple of data wiper packages doing the rounds. I think they've been removed actually from the repository, but if you have previously downloaded them and used them in any of the packages that you're developing, this is worth being aware of. So the two packages that particularly are under scrutiny at the moment are Express API Sync and System Health Sync API. They're posing as database syncing and system health monitoring tools. Various activities that these malicious scripts undertake, but one of them is rm-rf star in Linux directories. Also has the Windows equivalent. So if you're running Windows and you install this particular package, it will also wipe your directories. I'm trying to remember what the command is. rd/s/q, I think, or rd/s/q dot maybe. Anyway, the outcome is it will delete the directory in which it is running, which will presumably be your particular package directory or development directory. So be aware of that. These things are nasty. It's unclear whether this is going beyond just causing disruption. There's no indication that these packages steal cryptocurrency or credentials or whatever. They just appear to delete stuff. So yeah, if you've used, or if you've been, in fact, I would be fairly certain that if you've downloaded those packages, you would know by now. But just be aware. And on a broader point, be aware that even though packages are coming from well-known repositories, be certain that you know that they're the package that you're actually looking for. Do at least a modicum of due diligence on the authors of random packages that you are downloading. And if you are working with anything that's particularly sensitive, test them before you put them anywhere that really matters. Okay, on other matters, the US TSA, or they the travel security people in the US, are advising against using airport USB charging points to charge your phones. Now, it's one of those subjects that has cropped up every now and then, probably on the cyber press, and occasionally sensationalist headlines in the mainstream press. But the truth of the matter is that if you plug into a USB port, you don't really know what's on the other side of it. You're making an assumption that the USB port is just providing power, but there's no reason that that would have to be the case. Mobile devices that have been plugged in are plugged into a cable are accessible to a greater or lesser degree to technology which is on, as it were, the other end of the cable. Now, some mobile devices are more susceptible to compromise via USB connections than others. I think Apple makes it reasonably difficult to compromise a device without user interaction. They at least pop up something saying, do you want to trust this computer, or blah, 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 whatever it may be. I think I know less about how Android protects the systems. My understanding is that depending on how you've configured your system, it can be reasonably hard, or it may allow a certain amount of access right the way up to full access without user interaction. But the key thing is that the TSA, when the TSA start to talk about these things, US federal agencies are saying, be careful about this stuff. You probably ought to take it seriously. What they're recommending, of course, is that you just take if you need to charge your phone, take a battery, take one of these, take a power pack. And by the way, unless you've got a smart power pack, I'm guessing that if you need to recharge your power pack, you can recharge them by plugging them into the USB ports, because the worst that a computer could do, I guess, connected, some malicious scripts running on the other end of your cable plugged into your power pack, I suppose, could overheat your lithium batteries and cause a fire, but I think that would be fairly unlikely. So yeah, use a power pack. Don't use charging by directly plugging into things you don't understand, or don't know, or don't own. Same goes for Wi-Fi, using public Wi-Fi. There's a lot of discussion around whether it's safe or not safe to use public Wi-Fi, and one argument which you come across quite regularly is, this is all a load of hype with nothing behind it, because surely all your connections are encrypted anyway, just by the nature of the fact that, well, that's making an assumption, A, that you're browsing everything and that your phone isn't doing other stuff on that particular, isn't interacting with the network in any other way, which isn't true. And secondly, for almost all public networks, you need to go through a captive portal process. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that the captive portal process can't be manipulated in order to get user acceptance of the man in the middle, the proxy certificates. And if that's the case, then your connections are entirely possibly encrypted between the Wi-Fi proxy and your device, and on the other side between the Wi-Fi proxy and your destination, say, website, but allows the proxy in the middle to decrypt your traffic. That's how corporate SSL interception security systems work, which I've, by the way, always thought of as being a monumentally stupid idea. All sorts of legal ramifications waiting to be unpicked in that space, and only haven't hit the headlines because I think people are just not aware of what's going on, rather than because it's actually okay to do. So yeah, I would say, if you are going to use public Wi-Fi, use a VPN regardless, and I would absolutely 100% say use a reputable commercial paid-for VPN solution, because the anti-VPN lobby saying, "Oh, all VPNs snoop on you." Well, good ones don't, obviously, and there's lots of evidence that they don't. They behave themselves very well indeed. If it's free, be careful with it. They've got to make their money from somewhere. It takes a lot of infrastructure to run VPNs, certainly global VPNs. Okay, and then finally from me today, T-Mobile's T-Life app has been caught taking screen recordings of what you do in the app. Nobody can quite understand why. T-Mobile, on the face of it, say, oh, they use it for research into how the app is being accessed and how the app is being used, and they can then develop a better app or whatever. But all developers that I've ever spoken to say, well, that's a very unusual approach to gathering information about how an app is used. Normally you use in-app trackers and other bits and pieces. You wouldn't screen record all the actions going on within an app. Maybe it's sloppy, maybe it's, well, I'm going to go with cock up rather than conspiracy with this. I suspect that they're doing it for reasons that they think are useful or good reasons, but actually aren't. Or maybe it's just a hangover from before they got their heads around things like using proper app trackers, in-app trackers. It's kicked off a little bit of a storm amongst those in the know. First seen in Apple iPhone 16s, but has also then been later flagged in Android devices, Google Pixels, Samsung devices, and so on and so forth. So. There is a call for greater transparency. In the meantime, if you are using the T-Mobile app, T-Life app, be aware it may well be recording what you're doing and sending those recordings off to T-Mobile land somewhere without having asked you for any permissions to do this, or without letting you know that it's happening. Pick this up with T-Mobile if you're a T-Mobile person. Okay, that is all from me for today. I hope you have a good day, and I will speak to you all again tomorrow morning.